Welcome back to the world of Lance's crap, author books, things. Now, Gage has already written a review. Proper spelling, grammar, the characters practically insert made for the reader to accept. Attempt to seem cool, even if it's free, it's still not even worth that. So Lance basically has noticed that Gage and I, whenever we read one of these, we've been leaving a review, and we've been honest. I'll say we've been objective, but he's not happy with the fact that he's never scored over 1 star for stuff that he wrote in an afternoon and admits he didn't even fucking try on. So he's basically taken it upon himself, using a burner account with his own fucking legal name as the name of the account, which is also the author's name. He's been giving it 5 stars reviews, which is actually against Google's terms of service, by the way, and every other website has a thing about terms of service against that. Eligible, I respectfully disagree. Right, anyway, let's read this shit. I read through it once to get a feel for it. It's not much of an improvement, but we'll go over it. Jake, the teenager who likes rock music. You see, like, that as a title is not the best. Normally, because if you put Jake, you probably put like a colon or something, the teenager who likes rock music. But a better title probably would have been either the teenager who likes rock music, as awful and generic sounding as that is, or Jake the teen rocker, or like the teen who rocks, maybe, or some shit. I don't know. Like, you need a better title than just a fucking sentence summing up your entire fucking plot synopsis. So, Lance Renee, and it says Lance's Ideas. I don't know if that's like the series name, or if he was just on crack when he wrote this and just spammed that into the thing. I don't know, but whatever. Let's get into the real story. Chapter 1. There was a guy named Jake who likes music, preferably rock music, and then there's a quotation mark here that goes nowhere. Ooh, rock music. Can I listen to it too? Of course you may. Wow, that was easy. Jake played rock music all day long for me. That's great, but I'm going to need you to go to your room now because I'm going to bed. Good night. Good night. Jake walked into the back of his room and turned off his radio and went to sleep. Next morning. Right, now I'm going to dissect everything that's wrong with this. Right, the first problem is this. What the fuck is this? Second problem. Who is saying this? Who is saying this? What is the context of this fucking conversation? Where is this set? The basic who, what, when, where, and why is not fucking met in this diarrhea disaster. And what's funny is I know all the answers to this, but I did not when I first started reading. He was woken up by his mum calling him. He got up and went into the kitchen. Breakfast is ready, she said. Jake said, "Thanks, Mom. I appreciate the breakfast and I'm going to have a good day today." Okay, why is there a fucking speech mark in the middle of the fucking speech? Like, I don't know if this is a fuck up or if he was trying something here, but it's stupid. After eating breakfast, he went outside and got into the car. He put on his seatbelt and said, "See you later, Mom." One question I have already is, what kind of teenager is he? Like, how old is he? Because is he 13? His friends were driving him to a place. Right, so you didn't even establish that the car had pulled up outside. You normally you would establish that because it sounded like he was getting into his own car. He was driving to a place, but on the way, they got into a car crash. The police had cut open the other car to get the people out. The police officer told Jake's mom that Jake was going to be okay, but he might have a broken leg or arm. Right, so he's going to be okay apart from that debilitating injury that he picked up during the accident. Got it. Jake was immediately hauled off to the hospital where they did surgery on his broken arm, and he had a scrape on his leg. Okay, did he have a scrape or did he break his arm? Break his leg, sorry. Because those are different injuries. I like how he says he has a broken arm or leg. Like, what, did they do a coin toss for that shit? His mom came to visit him in the hospital. "How are you doing, dear?" she said. "I'm okay." I'm probably going to have to drop the Microsoft Sam voice. It's just the most appropriate voice I can think of for how these characters probably sound in real life. "I'm okay. I've been assigned to a different ward to make sure that I don't have any other medical issues." Why was there fucking like asbestos leaking out the ceiling in the other ward? Why the hell would that happen? "I'm a little scared, but I'm okay. It hurts to move my leg, probably because you scrape broke it." Mom also brought Jake's MP3 player so he could listen to his rock music. I like how they don't specify what kind of rock music, like, because there's so many different kinds of things that are considered rock over the past 60 or so years. That night he had a dream. In the dream, he was walking around a house. He went to the door and looked through the window. He saw somebody out through the window, but he couldn't tell who it was. Maybe it was a guy holding a guitar, but he looked closer through the window, and it appeared that the guy had a guitar in his hand, but he could not tell who he was. Now, this might sound like a prophetic dream. I wanted to say pathetic, but it's a prophetic dream. But it goes nowhere. It's not actually part of the plot. It's not a window into the future or into Jake. It's just a weird random dream that he has for no fucking reason. The next day, he got to go home, but he still had his cast on. Yes, that's kind of typical in these situations. He went upstairs to his parents' room where his mum was reading a magazine. Jake asked his mom, "What is the magazine about?" First thing he thought it was about music, but they replied, "It's about making a family better unit until that." Wait, hold on. It's about how to make your family a better unit that can get along better together. Now, this is the first major problem with this fucking dumpster fire, but I'm going to address it until I've read a few lines that more or less convey it. But first of all, is that a magazine? I need to subscribe to that magazine. Oh, fucking fly. It's been in my house for like 3 days now and it won't fuck off. I've tried killing it, but it won't stay still. "You mean family? What's wrong with my family?" he asked. "Well, the first problem is that you refer to it as my family when talking to another member of your family, which sounds incredibly possessive." She said, "Well, you got into a car accident." Okay, first of all, when you say "she said," you need to add a fucking speech mark so we know where the fucking, like, speech begins. "Well, you got into a car accident with your friend. I can't trust you with your friend again, so you're going to have to get along with your family." Right. Okay, I feel like I've got enough to address this. This paragraph is like, suddenly the entire family is dysfunctional. In the previous chapter, the family was not remotely dysfunctional. But now, because he's been in a car accident in which he was a passenger and he had nothing to do with the accident, and it's even classed as an accident, he's suddenly now the devil child who can do no right. And that's not me exaggerating. That is how this story progresses, and it doesn't make a little bit of sense. "That's not my fault. You and Dad don't like me because I'm not like you." Mom replied, "Watch the attitude," and she left the room. So they have a major communication malfunction here, because whenever he tries to talk about the issue, she just walks away and tells him not to talk and then just leaves. But also, where does this part come from? Like, they had a nice relationship before this point. It doesn't make any fucking sense. The rest of the day, he didn't think about anything at all. He just listened to his mum and sister fighting over who was right. So it's not just him who's the problem. Apparently, she has arguments with his sister. Has the mum ever considered that she's the problem? And he thought about it later that night. He found a blank journal and decided to write every day about what goes on in the house. He even wrote about his sister. Fuck. I can assure you this doesn't go into Christian territory. Thank God. The next day he went back to school and tried to pay attention in class. He thought about his mom and sister fighting over who was right, and he made notes in his journal about it. The teacher looked at him and said, "Put that book away." He quickly got up off his desk and replied, "That's my journal." Um, Small children know not to write personal journals in class. Why would you write it in a place where your classmates can see it and possibly take it off you and make fun of you or learn things about you that you might not have shared with them openly? Like, it seems stupid to write your journal in public unless you're in a place where nobody knows you. The teacher replied and said, "I don't care. Write that stuff at home now, right now, and sorry, write that stuff at home. Right now you're here to learn, and we were going to talk about math today." Right, two things. One, that sentence was such a mess that I fucked it up halfway through. Two, this is not how teenage school works. You don't suddenly have the teacher stand at the front like, "Today we're going to talk about maths." No, you have a maths teacher and a science teacher and a how to hide the body teacher. Like, you have a teacher for every subject you need to learn. He decided to start keeping a journal. He wrote about his mom and sister fighting and his thoughts on it. You keep establishing this, it doesn't help. He did this for a few days and then realized that he was actually getting along with his family. Nighttime came along and he went to ask Mom about Dad. Mom said that Dad left because he couldn't stand to see you and your sister fight all the time. What about the mum and the sister and the mum and the son fighting? That was kosher, but them two fighting each other was an issue. What is... Also, he's some shit father if he runs out on his son for arguing with his sister. Shouldn't he do the thing that a parent should fucking do and act as some sort of intermediary? Or maybe, if that doesn't work, get a fucking psychiatrist or something to help them work out their issues if it's too toxic of a relationship? Like, I don't fucking fathom what this family is. I'm sorry that I couldn't convince him otherwise. I tried. Maybe if you weren't such a wet bitch, this wouldn't have happened. Jake had a sad expression on his face and looked down at the ground. A tear came down from his eye, and he said, "I miss Dad. I really do want him back." Why? Seriously, he makes fucking Jerry from Rick and Morty look like Father of the fucking Year. "Well, why don't you write about it in your journal?" Mom asked. "I will." When did she find out about the journal, and why doesn't she talk to him about it like a real parent, instead of just going, go write about it in your little gay-ass journal? A few days later, he wrote in his journal about his dad leaving him because of his constant fighting. I like how the dad isn't even a character. Like, he's not even established. He just is an absentee figure who was part of the story but is now gone. He felt sad writing about it. One day, whilst he was doing his homework, Mom came into his room and said, "You got an A on your math test, congratulations." He replied, "Thank you." He was overjoyed that he got an A on his math test, so his mom decided to throw him a pizza party. Okay. He went to the school on the day of the pizza party and he saw his sister was there and she waved to him. They started talking, and they were actually getting along. He asked his sister, "Have you stopped fighting with Mom?" She said, "I've tried, but you know how she is. I'll keep trying to stop." He said, "I'm glad you're here," and they started talking for the first time in years. So these two fucking never said a word to each other for years? I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, and assumed that they first started properly talking, like properly communicating and having real conversations for the first time in years. But I'm pretty sure I wouldn't be surprised if they literally hadn't said a word to each other for fucking years. He then told his sister about his journal. His exact words were, "Don't touch my journal. Do not read it. It has a private information only my eyes can look at." Then his sister, that's just a really weird way to establish that kind of rule. Then it's like she didn't even ask to read it. It sounds like he's just desperate for the attention. Then his sister replied, "Okay, then I'll try not to look at your journal." I mean, if it falls in front of me and opens up on a page, then, I can't help it, but otherwise I'll try. They got to the pizza party and they had pepperoni and cheese pizza. Wow, these two are fucking creative geniuses. Jake looked at his sister and she was eating, and he realised that he'd been too hard on her. Why? Because she was eating? She was actually a pretty cool person, because she ate food. He then apologised about being too rough on her when he was talking about his journal, because he sounded like a fucking bipolar schizophrenic. He asked her if he wanted to read some of his entries in it. Why? What? This makes him seem even more fucking bipolar. Now he's gone from "do not ever fucking touch my journal" to "oh yeah, you can just read it like it's some armchair reading, it's fine. It's only all my deepest thoughts." Also, he knows that he's written about her in it, so why would he do this? Now, Gage has got the same impression that I have, and I've actually spoken to Gage about the context of this book, but he said that he believes that Jake is a self-insert of Lance. This is something that Lance does a lot. He basically does things like writes about people, wants them to see it, and then when they find it, he's like, and they get pissed at him, he then does all this underhanded bullshit to try and hide the fact that he's a fucking snake. He asked her if she wanted to read some of his entries in it. She said sure. She took the book and she got to page 14. That would be significant if page 14 was mentioned before, but it wasn't. She read carefully and it was about her. She got upset about it. Shocker. She threw the book across the room and it broke into a million pieces. Was it made of fucking glass? How the hell does a break? How does a fucking book break into a million pieces when thrown across a room? That doesn't make any fucking sense. She walked out the room crying. Jake tried to stop her, but it was too late. She was a mess crying. Nighttime came along, and she stayed up all night. What did he write about her? Because normally people don't have that reaction to "my sister's a bitch, she hogged the duvet when we were sharing the family bed." Like, so what the fuck did he fucking write that got this reaction? You see, that's another thing that Lance is often famous for. He'll write something fucking terrible, but then he'll sugarcoat it by being like, "I wrote something that they didn't like." Yeah, you wrote some slanderous horse shit. Also, because I can't help but think, like, wouldn't you also keep in mind that if you had a rocky relationship with the person at the time it was written, you'd be prepared for it to not be the most flattering image of you? Like, if I argue with my mate and he goes home and writes in his journal, I don't have any friends who have journals as far as I know, but if he did, and he wrote what an absolute twat that guy is, I wouldn't then go back 3 days later and fucking read the journal and be like, "He called me a twat." Yeah, because, we fell out. Well, that happens. Relationships change. Perspectives and opinions change on people, and most of us understand that. Jake did realise that he had to rewrite his journal, but differently, keeping his sister out of the book so that it wouldn't happen again. This is another Lance thing that he does. This horrible bitch that I live with, who's biologically related to me, who I can't bring up her name because I'll get into trouble. She's horrible. The next day he went to school and wrote in his journal again about his sister reading his journal. Okay. He wrote that she read it all and she didn't like the parts about her. Shocking. He then rewrote the fight that they had, but he also had to keep it secretive from his sister so that she didn't read it again. Why didn't he just stop writing about her? He was writing about his sister reading his journal again the next day, and she came into his room and asked, "Can I read your journal?" Why would she ask? Because she's fucking just established that she gets upset if she's mentioned in it. So why does she want to see it again? That's like pouring salt into an open wound deliberately of your own volition. He replied, "No." He replied to strongly remember. Do you even read what you... Oh, no, he doesn't. He doesn't even write. He just talks into a dictaphone. And it fucking translates his mumblings into a text. That's why it's all a fucking... That's why it looks like this. "No," he replied to strong remember what happened to my old journal. You ripped it up. I can't trust you anymore, sis. Well, neither can she trust you, because you write fucking bullshit behind her back. He was determined to keep it a secret that she already knew about. They went to a pizza place and he wrote in his journal again. This time he wrote more stuff, and it will make his sister extremely angry. You see, that's another thing Lance does. He knows that something will upset someone, so he does it some more, and then plays victim later when they get upset. But he knew he had to keep it a secret. He also wrote about his love for rock music, and he drew a heart under it. It was called "I Love You." What? And it had a guitar drawn in it with words, "You are my favourite person." Rock music is not a person. And everything he just described in this part of the story is fucking weird. The next day, his sister got hold of his MP3 player and she asked herself, "What kind of music is corrupting my brother?" Who the fuck is she? Jeff from Rocket's Your Decision? Is this set in the fucking 80s? She then put it on, played the music. The expression on her face wasn't happy. She then threw his MP3 player out the window and said that he would never have a favourite person again. This sounds like something an AI wrote. I know that an AI didn't write it because it makes too much sense for something that an AI wrote, but this part of the story fucking does. Jake was in his room looking for his MP3 player. He then asked his sister. Also, it really reads like something that Lance legitimately wrote himself. "MP3 player." She replied, "Nope, I haven't seen your MP3 player." These two have such a fucking toxic relationship built on nonsense. I don't understand it. But Jake knew that she was lying and replied, "Don't play dumb with me, sis. I know you had it. Now where is it?" So Lance understands the concept of lying and why it's annoying, but he does it anyway. He demanded whilst holding the MP3 player. She took it, but she said that they would talk about it later. What? What does any of that mean? Like, what? So he's holding the thing he's looking for? She took the MP3 player and threw it out the window. The next thing you know, Jake went out into the yard and found his MP3 player. It was all busted up because of a lawnmower rolling over it. Where did that come from? Jake was so angry he went to his sister. "I'm never going to talk to anymore." He was so furious to find out his MP3 player was broken with a lawnmower, he turned into a Dingo Pictures character. He then thought to himself, who could be mowing his lawn? Was it the gardener? No, it was the fucking plumber. He ran up to the kitchen to get some answers. He found the gardener and asked him why did he roll over his MP3 player, presumably because he didn't fucking see it in the grass. The gardener said, "Well, I have my music too. I listen to when I cut the lawn, but it's not rock, it's classical." Anyway, I was cutting the lawn, and I wasn't paying attention because I was listening to classical music. Obviously, when you have earbuds in your ears playing music loudly, it blinds you and you can't see shit that's right in front of you. You see, a better excuse would have just been it was in the tall grass and it ran it over because he couldn't see it. That would make sense. Jake then replied, "That's a lame excuse," and yelled at the man. "Oh, staff abuse, that's nice." The gardener said, "Take a chill pill, dude. I don't know why you have to be so upset. Here, have my MP3 player. Why does everyone have an MP3 player? Nobody fucking has those anymore. The only person who I know who has an MP3 player is my mother when she goes jogging, because every other alternative that she's ever used doesn't work as well. Like it's a lot more portable than a phone, and it's like, you know, wireless headphones keep disconnecting, presumably because she's running too fast for them or something. I don't know. We couldn't figure out what that problem was, but we did figure out that MP3 players just work better for her. So she just uses one of those, but she's the only person I know of who does. Jake then took his MP3 player, but he didn't like the music that was on the MP3 player. Dude, you got a free MP3 player, suck it up, because it was classical music, but he didn't care. You know that a lot of rock songs are actually based on classical music? Like, there are a few. Crazy Bus Driver Imaginary Places, I don't know if it counts, I don't think it counts as a rock song. But that's a classic example. Jake then played one of the songs and thought it was okay, but the problem was it wasn't rock music that he was used to hearing. Could you have researched a single fucking thing about rock music, why people like rock music, what kind of lifestyle a rocker would live? You know, just anything that implies that you thought about this for longer than an afternoon. Next day he was walking home and he said hello to the gardener. He was walking with him. The gardener said, "What do you mean hi?" Why is everybody on fucking psychedelics in this fucking book? He said nobody understands what words mean and they just get angry over nothing. He said, "I was just saying hi, what's wrong with that?" The gardener replied, "You know how I'm always saying hello and it doesn't seem you're always yelling at me or something." You know how I'm always saying hello and it seems like you're always yelling at me or something. Okay. Made a bit more sense second time. Still a crap sentence. Jake said because I'm a teenager and I'm not fully grown up yet. That's a typical Lance excuse. Maybe I'll talk to you like that later. What? But Jake never talked to him again after. Oh yeah, when he couldn't fucking abuse him anymore, he had no more use for him. He got what he wanted from him and couldn't abuse him afterwards, so he just fucking left him. He walked into his house and his sister was on the couch watching TV. He said, "Move over, sis. I'm going to sit next to you and watch some TV. Oh, and an MP3 player threw out the window. Forget about it. I got this new one. The gardener gave it to me." And he sat down on the couch. Dude, if you can afford a gardener, you shouldn't be taking the gardener's MP3 player. You should be buying your own. His sister said, "What are you going to listen to?" He said he would listen to what was on his new MP3 player. She said, "Why?" "Because I don't really care anymore. I thought rock was great, but there's classical music on it." "Don't you like classical music?" he said. "No." And she said, "Then why don't you get it?" What is this dynamic? What is their problem with each other? I don't understand what her problem is with the fucking rock music. Besides the fact that it's apparently corrupting her brother. Whatever that fucking means in this context. Like, that would make sense if she was religious in a weird way, but she's not. That's not been established. He's not playing the music out loud, so you can't say it's annoying her. Nobody in this fucking universe makes sense. He said, "Because the gardener gave it to me." She then looked at him and said, "You need to erase that MP3 player and put rock music on it. And I promise I won't touch it. But if you want to listen to that crap, then go for it." I mean, why not give the gardener stuff a chance? Maybe it'll grow on you. I mean, I personally would. If someone gave me 3 albums, I'd give them all a listen at least once or twice before deciding whether I like them or not. Hell, one of my friends gave me a bunch of albums. He gave me, what was it? It was Bare Naked Ladies, Feeder, and a Kenny Rogers album. Never liked the Kenny Rogers album, which is expected. Feeder was okay, and I loved the BNL one, but admittedly I had to listen to the Feeder album a couple of times before it grew on me, so, you know. Jake decided to turn on his computer and he plugged in the MP3 player in, and it popped on the computer labelled as MP3 player. Shocker. Then something happened. He got an error message on his computer saying, "Virus detected." He freaked out and said, "Oh crap, there's a virus on us MP3 player. It was a trap. The gardener her set me up." Okay, that's funny. Like, why is the gardener just fucking giving him a virus-riddled MP3 player? So, he's been unusual suspected. The gardener's just walking off with a big grin on his face because he fucked this kid's life up. Or, maybe he just downloaded a few dodgy albums off uTorrent and they were full of viruses, and that's possible as well. His sister came up to him and said, "What's wrong?" He said, "A virus was detected on our MP3 player and it was a trap." Why don't you just purge the viruses? Like most fucking antiviruses allow you to quarantine files and shit. Why don't you just do that? "I have to get it out of the house right now." His sister then tried to calm him down and said, "Please, you don't have to go anywhere. It's on the computer, Jake. We can erase it." He was going to run away from the computer. Is he on crack? Chapter 5. Oh, this is going to be a long one. Everyone top up your refreshments and everything because, you're going to be here all night. He looked at her and said, "Really, you trust me enough to erase it?" What? Why? What? Nothing in this equation is her property. Why would she give a fuck? She said so. His sister helped him erase the MP3 player. Then they copied all his rock music onto it, this MP3 player, and Jake was happy because he's a fucking simpleton who's trapped in the year 2006. The end. And then some stuff about bookricks.com. Okay. So this was released less than a week ago. You have just survived Jake, the teenager who likes rock music. That's a shit cover. I could make something better than that in 2 minutes. Right. First off, 1 star. Why is it 1 star? Characters make no sense. Poor grammar. Poor spelling. Nonsense plot. Written afternoon. Utterly broken storytelling and abrupt finish. Clearly written in an afternoon by an author who admits that he just doesn't care about the quality of his work, but can find plenty to break TOS, violating fake reviews, using fake Google accounts, using his own legal name that he authored the book with. This does not belong on a professional front. And 1 star is too much for it. There we go. A very objective review. Right. Jake, the teenager who likes rock music. At the beginning, I was going to say that it's got 1 or 2 minor improvements. Minorly improved garbage. But it devolves into complete nonsense. And in the end, I'm like, this is complete crap and I hate it. So, Lance has been writing for free on websites for a while, but he's not getting the fucking attention that he wants on those sites. because he can't get any feedback. So he just basically writes it on Google Play Store, presumably so, I don't know, he gets reviews or whatever. I'm surprised he doesn't write on fanfiction.net, but then I wouldn't be surprised because I know that people shit on that site, but that site does have some modicum of quality control, if not from the moderation staff, from the user base. Like, if you write complete shit on that website, you either get no views or you get angry reviews saying, why have you wasted our time with this shit? So I imagine that's probably why he won't go on there. He's like, oh yeah, I don't like fanfiction.net. And that's usually why. So yeah, the last thing I want to address, Lance has basically made out that all the reviews that Gage and I have left are anything but honest. No, these are more honest than this shit. He's like, oh, these books deserve 5 stars. Nothing written in a fucking afternoon deserves 5 stars. I don't care who you are, I don't care who you sleep with. You write something in an afternoon and put it on a professional storefront, you do not deserve 5 stars. If you do not have the ability to make comprehensive sense, you do not deserve 5 stars. If you leave egregious spelling errors in the middle of your work and punctuation errors, you do not deserve 5 stars. If you have a fucking dynamic that comes out of fucking nowhere for no fucking reason based off of nothing, you do not deserve 5 stars. This does not deserve 5 stars. This doesn't even deserve 1 star, but I can't give it any less than 1 star. So as far as I give a shit, I was just seeing what my options were. Lance, fucking knock off the stupid victim narrative bullshit, okay? It's not working. The stuff you write gets low ratings for a good fucking reason.
My name is Professor Curious, and I'll be doing a video on you.